Sorry, I had to climb up onto this hill that I'm willing to die on. I'm really excited to see how this video ages, because I am very willing to be wrong about all this, and I have not been able to read the 2024 Player's Handbook yet, so it might be a video that's dead on arrival. But you know, right now, as I'm filming, I firmly believe what I'm about to say. I think it's a good idea that every subclass now starts at level 3. But Thomas, warlocks don't make sense when they don't have a pact yet. How would a cleric possibly choose their god so late? How does a sorcerer even work when it doesn't even have a place to draw their magic from yet, even? My stories don't make sense with all my subclasses. AKA, a lot of people have an issue with this because the storytelling and flavor aspects of certain classes don't really make sense when they have to wait to get their subclass. And everybody who makes this argument is so fucking correct. Yay! Round of applause for you. You're right. Correct. It's a big old flavor L. It doesn't really make any sense, and it's going to make some classes more than a little bit weird. I am not here to argue flavor at all. I will lose that battle. I am just here to strictly argue function, and to try to bring your perspective around to one that's a little bit different. No. I'm not talking about bringing your perspective around to mine. I'm talking about bringing your perspective to one that's different than yours and mine entirely. I make D&D content, and you, sitting there in all of your glory, which is some beautiful glory, by the way, good job, you consume D&D content, don't you? You little gluttonous pig, eating it up. Nom nom nom, give me more D&D content, YouTubers, please. That's you. What the fuck is wrong with me? My mind is like a vault containing the countless hours of videos I've watched, books I've read, and all the games I've played in these last 8 years. It's called autism. The conversations surrounding me include game theory, power balancing, character build suggestions, and homebrew to the nth degree, storytelling advice, and even simple things you wouldn't think about like table etiquette. And if you found this little video from a tiny nothing channel like mine, I'm willing to bet you're in a very similar boat. You and I are a part of the D&D community. Once you're a part of a community, once you're familiar with something, you get familiar with its flaws. From there on, it's easy to get very focused on optimization. You know, fixing all those little flaws, trying to do things to make the game more interesting, adding more choices, and all that shit. Even if you don't realize that what you're doing is a form of optimization. You can backstory min-max. Making sure that the character is a perfect fit for the campaign you're in, has a non-cliche backstory, and meshes perfectly with all the other players, is a skill that you develop over time. It takes work. It also takes practice, in character and out, whether consciously or not. It is roleplay min-maxing. Even something as simple as knowing what a warlock is something that has to be learned. Yes, everybody has heard the term warlock, but what exactly a warlock is going to be different from story to story. And stuff like Sabrina the Teenage Witch and most things, they're just male practitioners of witchcraft. In the series Shadowhunters, they're like demon-human offspring, and in D&D, it's somebody who knows magic because they know a guy. Like, sorcerers in D&D are a font of magic. Their spells are innate to them, that they got through some kind of curse or bloodline or magical incident. In the Marvel Universe, Doctor Strange is a sorcerer, even though in D&D terms he'd be more like a wizard. And in the Discworld series, a sorcerer is the 8th son of an 8th son of an 8th son. They're a wizard squared. Figuring out how warlocks and sorcerers work in D&D, and more specifically in your specific campaign, takes a bit of understanding D&D as a whole to grasp. Learning a class does not stop at just the mechanics. It takes some experience with gaming and storytelling, at least in the broader sense, to be able to craft a good story for any class, honestly. This changes for new players. That's what I'm getting at. That's the whole video. You can turn it off at this point. That's all I'm going to be ranting about. It's for tiny little newborn 5e babies who have never played this game before and do not know what they're doing. And also, apparently, it's to stop some multi-classing power builds and also make DMs able to progress players more smoothly, which I don't think it will do, and also I don't think those are problems that need addressing. But the new player thing, that I agree with. Wizards and Jeremy Crawford have already said this, so I'm just sort of reiterating something that you've maybe already heard. But I'm doing that because I feel like there are some people out there that aren't fully considering this. It's kind of difficult to completely put yourself into somebody else's shoes. It's not easy to remember what it's like to have absolutely no idea what the fuck you're doing. I first started playing D&D by running a game for a couple of friends of mine who had also never played the game before. We were all avid gamers. We had played RPGs, tactics games, other things like that, and some of us had dabbled in different TTRPGs. There was something of a baseline for understanding games that are like this between the four of us. But none of us had first-hand experience with D&D 5e. And honestly, we grasped it so much better than everyone else I have ever taught this game. Looking back, we retained so much information and we were able to get through it fairly quickly and start playing, and I'm kind of impressed by us. And also, I am deeply, deeply embarrassed at all of the fucking mistakes we made. Dear God, this game is so hard to learn when you don't have somebody walking you through it. Holy shit. There were 3 or 4 of us people, I think 4, looking through this book together, and we could not find the section where it tells you how to get your ability scores. Because honestly, in the 2014 handbook, they put it in a terrible spot. It's hidden in the middle of some paragraphs. But seriously, we could not find it, so I ended up Googling it. I clicked on the first video result that there was, and there was way less D&D content back then. And the video had a guy going through his stats in order, filling them out. Because he rolled in order, we thought you rolled your stats in order, and you didn't get to pick where they go. This meant we had a rogue with a 4 in his dexterity, and none of us realized how much of a fucking problem that was. We read through these books together, and it took hours upon hours upon hours just to create characters. It felt exhausting, and eventually it felt like work we were having to just get through so that we could play this game we didn't even know if we'd enjoy, and we're the type of people who like grinding out stats like that. We like spending time making characters, and it still felt like work. Whenever I look at a new TTRPG, it still feels like work, and I have 8 years of experience playing these kinds of games now. Every time I play a new system, and even if I play with buddies who have more TTRPG experience than me, every time we play a new system together, we always end up fucking up more things than we get right. For somebody who isn't as interested in gaming or as interested in rules and systems as I am, I can only imagine how much harder it is to understand these books. There is a lot to learn with just the base mechanics of this game alone. The less you throw onto a new player, the better. They're going to be able to learn and retain a lot more of the information you give them if you're not overloading them, if they have less things to flip through and less stuff to manage on their character sheet. A common counter-argument that I've been seeing online to this change is that players already have a ton of stuff to flip through, so honestly, what's one more decision that they have to make? Everything! It is everything! Are you kidding me? Players are already overloaded, so wherever you can trim stuff down, you should, because that will help them retain the information you're giving them. I do not get this argument of, it's like looking at somebody who's straining themselves, lifting way too heavy of weights and being like, what's 10 more pounds? Throw them on, buddy. You're gonna be good. Just stop. I know that lots of people hate the idea of levels 1 and 2 being seen as sort of tutorial levels, but I think the game kind of needs them to be. They need some kind of tutorial period, and I think the first 2 levels are a fine thing to be that. Not every single part of the game can be tailored to us experienced players. Not every single level should be for us. You gotta remember, there are people out there that when you tell them to roll a d20, they'll roll a d12 with confidence. With confidence! I've already taught a few people how to play D&D by asking just a few questions and then making a level 1 character for them. Getting just enough information so that we can start playing. And then as the campaign goes, we start to flesh out their character, asking things like, what sorts of personality traits do you really have and want to stick with? Where are you from? What kind of people do you know? And we build their character as we go. That way they get to actually experience the game first, and then they can focus on building a character, not the other way around. And when subclasses come at later levels, it creates a very natural opportunity to flesh out that character and ask some of those questions. It's a built-in point for them to make a decision about who they are and what they want to play. I found this to be one of the most effective ways at hooking in new players to keep playing D&D. And while not everybody's going to have somebody who can make a character sheet for them, I think it's still a very good idea for the game to have natural opportunities for people to build a character as they go. New players shouldn't have to have everything figured out before they start playing. I think it is totally fine to only know you want to be an elven rogue first and to figure out all the rest of it later. You can come up with personality quirks and where you're from after the fact. It's a totally fine way to engage with the game, especially when you're just starting out. I think it is easier for us as established, experienced players to work our stories around subclasses coming later. While it's not perfect, there are ways to do it. I don't think it's hard to have this kind of suspension of disbelief. You can say that your warlock has just had their pact since level 1, and people have come up with clever ways to flavor this sort of stuff, like you are a follower getting light magic from your patron, but you don't actually fully seal your pact until level 3. I think that's really clever, really neat, and could make some fun characters. I also think it's not at all necessary. When I play a sorcerer or a warlock, I flavor everything around my patron or what's the sorcerer thing? What the fuck is a sorcerer subclass called? Is it like magic origin? That sounds wrong. Point being, I flavor everything around my subclass, not just the subclass features. So I'm just gonna keep building characters the way I always have. Nothing is changing for me. Even if you do still struggle with this stuff, that's fair. That's totally fine. I get it. I see you. It leaves a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth too. I don't see it as a perfect solution. But I'm willing to bet it is still something we struggle with less than a new player is going to struggle with all of those damn subclasses being thrown at them the second they start the game. The rulebooks need to try and appeal to everyone, and in doing so, they will fail to ever fully appeal to anyone. But the newer players are the ones that need them. I still like these books. I'm going to buy them, I'm going to read them. I still want them, but I don't need them. I know how to make my own stuff now. I know how to bend the rules in a lot of different ways. New players don't. I think we can make this sacrifice for them.